Welcome to the Emily Rassam Show, the podcast that proves parenting, business, and home life can all be juggled, just not always gracefully. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share because laughter and maybe chaos is better when it's spread around. Hello, and welcome to the Emily Rassam Show. Today I am joined by Dr. Miguel de Pigdorfilia, Doctor of Oriental Medicine, and we, for Valentine's Day kind of theme, are going to talk about the heart and its connection to the circulatory system in traditional Chinese medicine. And first, we're going to start off with the heart, or sin. Is it zin or sin? If I'm pronouncing Sheen. Okay. See, I'm pronouncing it wrong already. And I'm going to let Dr. Miguel take it away from here. Thank you for joining us again. We had so much fun last time.
Thank you. Well, the truth is that when we talk about the heart in the Chinese system, immediately when we look at the radicals, it seems like a bleeding mechanism. You see, so the heart in the Chinese medicine is not only the muscle. When you look at the radical, it also means the core, the nucleus, the center. You cannot divide the metabolic aspects in classical medicine that the myocardial muscle performs. You cannot divide it from the spiritual aspects. In every religion, and modern medicine being the only religion, the only medical system that is separated from a philosophical religious scaffolding, if you wish, does not take that into consideration today. Thank God it is beginning to recuperate that, because nowadays, I just read an article today on the National Institute of Health that we're beginning to recuperate that emotions that we live through the heart are experienced and lived through physiological processes, neurological processes, but also sociological processes. So again, we are going back to the times where we are full beings. We're not just a clump of cells. And I think that's very important. Coming into St. Valentine's, and we understand that. Again, with the St. Valentine subject, the universal principle of the heart, again, and following with the bleeding image that the Xing ideogram in Chinese means, is that the heart is the seat of love. It's the reflection of the divine universal love. You have different kinds of love. For example, St. Paul's talks about agape, which means translates as caritas, or performing love, perfect love, the love that gives everything without asking anything in return. Then you have storgeo, which is familias, the love that you have for people in your circle, your friends, your family. Then you have phileo, which is basically the love that you have for your friends. And then lastly, you have romantic love, which is the most simple on the one hand, but also the most complicated aspect of love, if I may say so. So it's really one love. We just express it at different times, at different moments. I don't know if that makes sense.
It just depends on your emotional scale you're on, really. Like,
exactly.
If it's what type of person you're interacting with.
Correct. So I always tell people, we don't stop being sons for being parents. We don't stop being a professional for being a spouse, with everything at the same time, depending on what we're doing at that particular moment. You see? So in the Chinese system, the heart core functions are obviously to pump blood and circulation. The heart ensures that the blood moves smoothly. It is ruled by the fire element, and the fire element also rules the vessel system and the small intestine. The heart also houses the shen. The Chinese system, shen means the mind, the higher mind. That includes consciousness, memory, the emotions, obviously, and mental clarity. Like I mentioned, the heart also controls the vessels. Any vascular problem immediately will reflect in the heart. As everyone knows, people that have a coronary issue or a vascular disease, it always goes back to the heart. And as we say, the eyes and the face are the reflection of the heart, obviously, because the heart and the eyes reflect the emotions, basically. So facial complexion, tongue, vascular circulation, mouth ulcers, etc. are the key diagnostics in Chinese medicine in terms of how to determine heart health, if you wish.
And so how does that then relate? I know for a lot of your patients, they're older since you're in the villages, to things like emotional stress, or overexertion, and then other
Yes,
problems you think of as you age.
correct. So the heart, so this is what in the Chinese system we are called the five faces or the five emotions. The five emotions represent each of the organ systems. So, like I explained to you on the first video, in modern medicine, also in China, I mean, Chinese medicine is also modern medicine, but in the modern aspect of the medicine, the body is divided into 10 metabolic systems. In classical medicine, it's divided into 5 metabolic systems, one of them being the heart. But when we talk about the heart, we don't mean the myocardial muscle. What we mean is several aspects of the hormones, because the heart is also a hormone. We mean several aspects of the cardiorespiratory system, but also several aspects of the cardiovascular system. How is this relevant to emotions? Well, because the heart being the emperor of the organs, the heart being the chief organ of all, receives every single emotion. Okay, that's why we speak about in Chinese medicine about the 5 shen or the Guo Shen. Guo Shen means that joy, sadness, worry, pensiveness, grief, shock, fear, anger, frustration, everything goes back to the heart at the same time. How is this possible? Well, it's very simple. It's the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is cranial nerve number 10, and it flows from the sides of the head, basically here, through the neck, and it prolongs all the way down into our pelvic floor, and it connects every single organ. This is why every time you have a strong emotion, within 10 seconds, you feel it in the heart. So the main connection is the liver. Immediately, when you have a specific emotion, the liver activates adrenaline, noradrenaline, cortisol. Those generate immediate cascade changes that go into the bloodstream, and that activates what we call the RAAS system, renin, angiotensin, and aldosterone.
Which is a
They will
hormone cascade, yes.
correct a
For
hormonal
for
cascade.
simple terminology for that one, in case you're listening and you don't know.
Exactly.
Yes.
So basically, within 6 seconds, 10 seconds, you will have a cardiovascular response. Now, there are two theories, and let me know if I'm getting too complicated. There are two theories about this. In my opinion, both are correct. Again, it depends. So the first theory is that every cell membrane in our bodies has chemical receptors, like a tennis racket or like a fisherman's net, if you wish. So every time a hormone is secreted or an enzyme is secreted by a gland, within 10 seconds, the bloodstream brings that to the target cell and the cell reacts. This is true. The other version or the other theory, which is also true, is that the speed of thought generates an immediate electromagnetic trigger in the brain through the vagus nerve, which is cranial nerve number 10, with a specific electronic imprint that goes specifically to the group of cells in that organ. And that is what triggers the cascade response.
And so Dr. Miguel is saying that there's a chemical response and it has a message that it sends to the cells that it's trying to attract
Correct.
or communicate with. And it's part of working with your heart, emotions, and circulatory system in general, because your circulatory system is the vehicle that drives
Yes.
communication from your thoughts to your heart and then through your bloodstream to the cells it's trying to talk to.
So continuing with the subject of love, there's three hormones that are secreted in love. Oxytocin being the first one. And oxytocin is basically the one that we feel when we're in love with your spouse, the most romantic aspect of love, right? The other one is dopamine. A dopamine, which basically is the one that makes you feel good. Dopamine we get after the first 3 months of, you could say, the romantic infatuation when you start going out with that person. So we go from oxytocin to dopamine. That is when love, real love, of course. Now, I'm not talking about dysfunctional or lustful love. I'm talking about real spiritual love or real spousal romantic love. That's when the love stabilizes and you feel that bonding connection. But we also have vasopressin. The vasopressin is more active. It's the one that makes you do things for the other person. It's the more active aspect of love. Uh, Going back to St. Paul, that would be the caritas. It's the active. Okay, I love you. I feel compassion for your suffering, but I'm not going to sit here and just pray. I'm going to do something for you. That's vasopressin. Something very beautiful that I was reading the other day. Men and women are not the same. I know it's not fashionable to say this, but we have different bodies, different biochemical systems, different organs, different nervous connection, different neurological, everything. Experiments have been done with women, and when they've had the baby crying or the children crying at night, mom will wake up. Mom will wake up within 5 seconds because oxytocin makes her wake up. Dad will stay. Well, I mean, it's like the sleeping beauty. You can drop
Yes,
the atomic bomb. Dad will not wake up.
I can attest to that. That is
Okay,
true.
because that's not his job. That's mom's job. However, the same experiment have been done. If a leaf or a branch falls in the yard, that should not take place within 1 or 2 seconds. Dad will be up out of the bed, checking what's going on. That's his job. He's the protector. He will give his life for those kids. His job is to protect, to be violent if he has to be violent, to see what's going on. So it's a wonderful balance. We both feel the same love. We manifest it differently. We have different functions.
Yes, I was wondering if, because you were talking about it, the vasopressin was more prevalent in males. And then I was kind of wondering maybe what your take is on this, but you know how we hear all the time that social media gives people a dopamine hit?
Yes, but
How
that's a different thing.
that would affect your circulatory system or your ability to express that kind of love for people around you, because I feel like maybe it diminishes it, but I'm not an expert on that. I was just curious if you had a thought on that comment.
Well, yes, but that would take us more into the brain areas. That
Right,
would
right,
take
right.
us into the very complicated aspects of the actual neurological connections that the different organs have. The amygdala, the basal ganglia, the brain stem, the white matter, the gray matter, the frontal lobe, the frontal cortex. It's very complicated, but that's basically, there's no difference between a drug addiction and social media addiction. You have a, a misfiring at the frontal lobe, and that will generate addiction, and that will numb any addiction, any uncontrolled firing of dopamine in the brain, artificially triggered, will numb down the normal neurological reactions.
Right. It's just something I always bring up.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I it's like a topic I'm passionate about, and I try to
Yes, yes,
hide all social media from my kids while they're young and all of those things, so it just made me
yes.
think of that.
I don't know if we discussed this on the first instance, but in 2024, it was discovered and published in the case report, among other things, in England, that 100%, not even 99.9, 100% of behavioral issues, from depression to anxiety, everything, in everyone below the age of 40 was directly related to social media.
That's very interesting. I would
Yeah.
love to read that.
Yeah, I don't have, well, you can read the case report,
I can look it up, I'm sure.
which goes into the social media problem and the identity politics that has been, and the woke movement. It's a very touchy subject. I would not want to
That's
go into
okay.
that today.
I totally get that.
Yeah. The most important thing is that in terms of the heart, when you have an afflictive emotion, immediately the liver will trigger cortisol. Cortisol is the stress hormone. The cortisol will immediately generate tissue constriction. What does tissue constriction mean? It means fight or flight. So every soft tissue in your metabolism contracts. So that means that immediately your digestive system shuts down immediately.
It's
But
like
your heart also
the off
contracts.
switch is what he's saying, if you don't understand. It's like an
The
off
off switch,
switch.
exactly.
Okay.
So the heart, being a muscle, immediately contracts. And the adrenaline goes to the thyroid, and now the thyroid says to the lungs, breathe faster, to the heart, beat faster. But the problem is that it's not a full beat, it's a fast beat. So now you have blood deficiency, qi deficiency in the Chinese system. What does that mean? It means anxiety, it means palpitations, it means fatigue, it means insomnia, it means lack of concentration, it means poor memory. That's what we call a parasympathetic problem. Connected through what system? The vagus nerve. So everything is connected electronically.
Yes. And for those of you who don't know, that nerve is part of, I think it's connects to the sinoatrial node in the heart, which is the pacemaker. Am I correct? I could be wrong.
Yes, you're
Okay.
correct. The sinoatrial node, once T3, T4, again, the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system from the kidney adrenals go up to the thyroid. Then the thyroid tells the heart, T3, T4, pressure, rate, blood volume. And the blood volume is determined by the sinoatrial node.
And I can attest to all of the moms listening to this that this definitely happens when you are pregnant a lot of times. You get the increased anxiety and cortisol and all of those things when you get stressed out.
Yeah. So like I said, the Chinese system, which is coincides perfectly because it's the same heart, right? So you can have heart qi deficiency, heart blood deficiency, heart yin deficiency, or heart fire. The heart fire is basically when you have that horrible anxiety that endures for a long time. So we always seek to improve circulation and calm the mind, calm the emotions, and bring everything down. And we can do that by different acupuncture combinations, different herbal formulas, definitely sleep hygiene, and different aspects. There are many symptoms. Each of those conditions have different symptoms. Again, insomnia, anxiety, mood swings, irritability, different types of trauma. We can get this by just daily experiences, but also overexertion. People don't realize nowadays how overworked we are, and overexertion drains the heart qi. The heart becomes tired. It cannot push blood effectively. When that happens, the qi falls, energy falls, because the qi and the blood are directly connected. So the blood circulation now is low and it becomes obstructed. And if you add that to the stress levels that are keeping the vessels constricted, now you can see why many people get headaches, get migraines, indigestion, constipation, and place your name here.
Then I'm kind of wondering, like, how does this play into something, and how would Chinese medicine describe a heart attack? Because when you think about a heart attack, a lot of times you see the pictures where somebody got really mad and then they have a heart attack, but that's not always the case. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
A heart attack is when we call that a heart qi collapse. A heart qi collapse, we would have to see why is that taking place in that person in particular. It could be a yin and yang separation, which is basically close to death. Why is that taking place? Well, we have to examine the metabolism. If the adrenaline impulse is too strong coming from the cortisol, you can have a cortisol storm and an adrenaline storm, and that generates a system shutdown. So a system shutdown, it's basically a heart attack. A lesser system shutdown is what we call a fainting or a vasovagal collapse. And that is always, the vasovagal collapses, is, you could say, is a subconscious mechanism where the experience is so painful that basically the soul says, okay, I'm not registering this, I'm not experiencing this, so it withdraws and the body faints, collapses. That's a vasovagal reaction.
And would that be typically, if you're thinking about it, related to a physical pain or an emotional pain? Because I know there's two different times when you might faint. You know, something hurts so much, you black out physically, or you just had an emotional stress event.
The physical, yes, they end up causing the same. That would be a sympathetic parasympathetic disconnect. You can live without your limbs when you realize that there's a crisis and the lion is coming and you're not going to get through it. Well, your system shuts down because you don't want to go through that. Yes, that is one aspect. The other aspect definitely is the spiritual aspects of the. If you remember the Star Wars, the movie, when people die of love or broken heart, that is also true.
I think that happens in real life too.
Yes.
It does.
Yeah.
And let's see, what would be a sign that you would see of the the imbalance? I know you were saying your face and you practice iridology, so you would look at your eyes. But what about like, I don't know, varicose veins or poor circulation in your legs, or maybe something like Raynaud's syndrome where your fingers are turning blue, for example, or cyanosis of your lips, things like that. What do you look for with from your medical.
Well, we're looking at a chronic aspects of irregular pulse, shortness of breath, fatigue, insomnia. In the terms, going back to the shock aspect, the fainting, the vasovagal, sudden palpitations, fibrillations, those would be the signs. We all go through that every day or every week or every month. But when it becomes chronic, those are signs that we're starting to have a heart issue. Obviously, we all know nowadays we're very well trained in terms of what to look for heart problems. When you get close to a heart attack, if you're a woman, it feels a lot like a flu. But if you're a man, it's more that pain in the chest, hard strong pressure pushing down, the pain around the brachial nerve and artery uh, on your left arm specifically. Those would be signs, basically. But because, like, the heart regulates the vessels and the blood, you definitely have to look at proper oxygenation, cyanosis, especially in the peripheral areas of the body, hands and feet.
Yes, and also that can be caused by overexertion and exercise too.
Yes, yes. Because in the Chinese system, because the heart uh, houses the mind, even a mild heart imbalance can affect your sleep. So if you're starting to have difficulty falling asleep, feeling mentally busy at night, especially if you wake up frequently between 11 p.m. and 3 p.m., because those are the times of the gallbladder and the liver, like I mentioned before. Those are the ones that generate the cortisol, the adrenaline, and the epinephrine and the norepinephrine straight into the heart muscle. So you're not going to be able to wind down. That would be one of the first signs. Also, you have to look at cognitive changes, forgetfulness, absent-mindedness, difficulty focusing, feeling mentally scattered, trouble organizing thoughts, all of that. That would be what in Chinese medicine we call heart blood deficiency or Shen disturbance.
It sounds an awful lot like a postpartum mom's life.
Yes. Well, Emily, it's not amazing because please remember that you just gave your blood to your child.
That's true. So that
Okay.
makes
And you gave so much love for 9 months. Your heart was feeding that baby. Okay. So all of that heart, everything, the blood, the chi, the energy, everything was going to that baby for 9 months. So of course you're going to have heart blood deficiency, but
that
it's the
makes a lot
good
of
type of
sense.
heart blood deficiency,
Yes, it is.
right? So we obviously, because the heart governs the mind, we're also going to have emotional shifts. You're hypersensitive. Again, this is also going into more the female aspects in pregnancy, but also the menstrual cycle. Hypersensitive or reactive, tearful, sad, irritable without a clear cause, a short fuse. Anything overwhelms you. You have a constant sense of inner agitation without knowing what's going on. Stuff like that, basically.
Yes.
In terms of the chi stagnation, which is when the heart nerves, the vasovagal plexus of the heart begins to feel tired because of the overburdening, you begin to have a faint sense of pressure in your heart and you will have occasional fluttering. And sometimes you will even get some sensation of emptiness in your chest, or like you were sitting on a cold bucket of water.
And those are common stress symptoms also that you hear about from
Yes.
psychology.
Yes, because remember that, as I explained to you before, when you're stressed out because of the cortisol and the adrenaline and noradrenaline, synonyms of epinephrine and norepinephrine, the heart is also a muscle. So instead of having the full relaxed palpitation, you're going to have like a fast palpitation. So you're not going to have a full pump. The pump is going too fast and it's not pumping properly. So the muscle is, I don't know, imagine going to the gym, doing dumbbells with your biceps, and instead of going full like this, you're going to rip the muscle sooner or later,
And you're
right?
not going to get a good workout in either.
You're not going to go, you're going to get injured and you're not going to get a good workout.
Right.
So, like you mentioned before, and maybe going in circles, but this is absolutely true. So, because the heart governs the vessels, heart imbalances in our system, you're going to see cold hands and feet. You're going to see occasional dizziness. Why? Because the heart is connected to the small intestine, and the small intestine filtrates the nutrients from the refuse. If there's a lot of stress, that doesn't take place. So the turbid is not being separated from the clear. That's going to create dizziness. It's going to create a lack of concentration and poor memory.
Right. And is that at all related then to, as we would talk about, blood pressure? Just because it has a lot of the same keywords that you're using that you would talk about with blood pressure. I am curious.
Not necessarily, because we don't know why. Uh, and I say not necessarily in the sense that we do not know why we get high blood pressure. I mean hereditary blood pressure. I mean, if I eat salty foods, if I eat a whole bucket of popcorn, of course I'm going to get high blood pressure.
Right.
It's a salt coated fat bomb.
Yes.
But for people that have congenital family blood pressure, we don't know why that takes place. Needless to say, of course, we're going to see some of the symptoms we've just discussed.
Right. I was curious if those were related then, mildly related. We're going to say
Yes,
mildly related.
mildly related. And
Yeah.
something else that we're going to see as we have social or emotional withdrawal, because we're talking about the mind. So if the heart chi is weak, and this happens a lot with as we age, as the heart
Yes.
muscle begins to weaken, people begin to withdraw from social groups. They want to be by themselves, but also they start to develop a sense of disconnection, a sense of, so what, not apathy, because it's not apathy, it's just disconnect. Loss of involvement, loss of participation, it's like, meh, so what? You know? It's
Right.
because joy is the emotion of the heart. So when the heart chi becomes deficient, joy becomes deficient.
I was going to say also that sounds a lot like the symptoms that you hear for depression. So it makes sense. You're also withdrawn and you're lacking joy a lot of times when you are experiencing depression. And
Yes.
also when you age too, because, you're right, you do have that major disconnect of missing out on social function. And then it kind of has, I guess you would say, a back loop to where it keeps getting worse and worse and worse as time goes on.
But remember, again, depression is connected to a collapse in dopamine and serotonin in the brain.
Right.
Right? So those are the hormones that we get when we are worried and hyper and ruminating, pensive, going over the same thoughts over and over and over and over and over. That belongs to the spleen, and that's the earth element. The earth element comes from the fire element, but if it goes reverse, now the earth is smothering the fire. You see, so now the collapse in serotonin and dopamine are creating that depression. There's no even hormonal response.
Right. And I want to say also, Dr. Miguel uses the elements like the earth and the fire and water and air because they're good kind of symbols of how these systems work together and what happens if one cancels the other one or promotes the other one.
Yeah, because remember that in the old days, these elements were basically metaphors for metabolic processes and groups of genes. Because, like we started, we're not just a body of flesh. We have a whole universe. If you look at the brain, if you look at enteric nervous system, we have 500 million neurons in our intestine, our enteric nervous system. We have more neurons in our in the nervous system than we have in our brains. So if you look at them in a microscope and you remember that neurons do not touch each other. So
They don't, they have a synaptic gap between the two and they still
exactly.
communicate like
So
this,
the
kind of.
dendrites are close, but they don't touch. So what is exactly taking place between them? It's electricity. What is electricity? It's chi. It's pure quantic energy. But where does that come from? That comes from the soul, the spirit, the mind, or all at the same time. The name doesn't make the thing. So we can indeed have short circuit currents. And if the short circuit currents are too low or too high, the dendrites are going to be affected.
Just like in electricity, when you have a windstorm or a hurricane blows down your electric poles.
Exactly. Imagine for a moment, if you wish, that's why in the house we have different currents. You have 110, you have 12 volts, you have 520 for the big appliances. But what happens if you connect, and that's exactly why we have different types of plugs with from 1 to 3 insertions, and they are different in sizes and potency because you cannot connect 110 extension or plug into a 520 outlet because you're going to blow something up. You can even blow the fuses. Okay, the same thing happens in our bodies. We can blow a fuse.
Makes a lot of sense. And let's see. So I think maybe we could talk about a little bit preventative practices for supporting heart health. And especially for people under a high deal of stress would be a good one, since we seem to have that a lot in our culture, specifically Western culture. We like to be high stress.
Well, so the first thing is to recognize that the main problems that we have is excessive work, emotional disturbances, and poor nourishment. So the first thing we need to do is to have, as much as possible, a lifestyle change. We need to try to re-regulate our emotion and our minds by doing breathing exercises. You can inhale gently for 4 seconds, exhale slowly for 6 seconds, concentrate on the chest, do that 3 minutes every day. You can do different types of meditation, you can do Tai Chi, you can do yoga, and definitely a proper diet. Low salt, low fats, low dairy because dairy is high in fats. You can have stuff like goji berries, jujube dates, walnuts, beets, dark leafy greens. Avoid red meat. If you're not an O type, try to avoid red meat. Avoid spicy foods. Try not to have caffeine after 12 noon. And basically have a good sleep hygiene.
What does good sleep hygiene look like? Because I know a lot of people that are listening are not going to know what that means. They think,
Well,
oh, I went to bed at 8:30 or 9 o'clock, but
Well,
it's a little more complicated.
that's the best time to go to sleep, actually, because that's when the pericardium is active. So that's the best time to go to sleep. Like we said before, if you wake up between 11 and 3 a.m., that in Russia they call that the hour of the wolf. And they call it the hour of the wolf because all of your wolves come howling at that time. But that also coincides with the circadian rhythm in Chinese system, where the gallbladder and the liver activate all of those afflictive emotions. So if you want to avoid that, a light dinner in terms of low fat, just a good soup. You can have salad, but always have something warm to warm the heart, to warm the stomach. Chamomile tea, passion flower, lavender, soothing teas that no caffeine. The soothing teas that calm you down. And turn on the electronics.
Yes, turn them off.
Turn them off. Let your body, I mean, we are part of nature. Our bodies are part of nature. Enjoy the night. Look out, look at the stars. Look at the moon. I mean, not stare at the moon like a moron, but, enjoy the night. Just breathe. Enjoy the night and allow your body to wind down and always do prayer, always do meditation, always, center yourself back. Don't be scattered. This is in Tai Chi and yoga, that means your winds are all over the place. Your brain is all over the place. The only thing you're doing is you're focusing your electrical relay back into the center so that your neurons are not shooting all over the place like fireflies.
Right. And that makes me think about how, like in the past, we used to eat not 3 meals a day. A lot of times it would be breakfast and kind of in the South, where my family is mostly from, they call it supper. So it's not really lunch, it's not really dinner. It's kind of in between those times, about midday. So you're not eating really late at night, which is not good for your rest because your digestive system is then going while you're trying to sleep.
That is correct. Ayurvedic medicine, Chinese and Tibetan medicine is not recommended to have anything heavy after 7:30. And this has a physiological basis. Spinal, the brain spine fluid, the encephalorachidus fluid, which is that orangey jelly that moves up and down our medulla, our spine, and where our brain floats inside our skull. It has a cycle of 12 hours and it has an ebb and a flow. So as it goes up and down, it activates the different dermatomes, and each of the dermatomes is coming from a specific vertebra, and each of those vertebrae connects to a specific organ. So after 7:30, 8 p.m., wherever you are in the world, because it has to do with the sun, that the digestive organs disconnect, you see? So if you eat something heavy, they do this in the Mediterranean. I mean, every time I go to the Mediterranean, I get sick because people eat at 11 or 12 midnight. They're night
Right.
owls. And
They
then they
are.
wake up, at 11 a.m. or at 10 a.m.
I was just about to ask you about Spain and tapas over in that region. But the funny thing is, their neighbors in what we would consider the Middle East portion of the Mediterranean kind of quit eating around 3 or 4 o'clock in the daytime. And most of the time, except for on certain holidays, they eat after sunset. But,
Yeah, the Ramadan, yes.
yeah, but most of the time they eat around 3 or 4 o'clock, their big meal, and then they're kind of done for the day.
It's
Traditionally.
it's it's basically that. It's basically that because the Arabs copied the Roman medical system. They Arabized it like the Japanese copied the Chinese medical system and they made it Japanese. But the Arabs rescued or whatever was left after the Vandals destroyed Rome, plus the connection with the Persians and the Indians. The Arabs kept many good medical practices and good health practices,
Yes, including not eating late at night.
including not eating late at night.
And then here in the US, we just kind of went a little haywire with it and we eat at any time. And we don't have as many traditions around like when you eat your meals. I feel like today it's become a little bit more that way. Maybe a couple of generations ago, we really focused on being done by maybe 5 o'clock at night eating. So it's just a little bit of a cultural shift. So maybe it's affecting us and we're noticing it more because little small changes do add up, even if they're good or not so good.
It's the problem with that is that the stomach, and then we go back to the digestive issues. The stomach is also an organ, and so the stomach needs to have a cycle. So the stomach has has to have a rhythm. So you have to have a set rhythm of meals, of quantity of meals, and of quality of meal. So the stomach needs a cycle in which it gets full, it breaks down the food, and it empties the food. You cannot be eating all day. Another problem is that many people are constantly eating because they think they're hungry. They're not really hungry. They're dehydrated.
Yes.
Instead of eating stuff, you should be drinking water. And then, trust me, you would feel a lot better because you need that water for all of your metabolic processes. Most people are chronically dehydrated.
And I think also I'm going to tease Dr. Miguel and say that he said that you're supposed to eat your Valentine's chocolate before 12 noon because it contains caffeine.
Yes, there's a very funny story about chocolate, especially St. Valentine's. Many, many years ago, when I started studying this medicine in the early 80s, chocolate is from Mexico. Well, from the Central Valley. So when the Spanish get to Mexico and they marry with the Mexican girls, it was the Mexican girls that, just like today, they would bring chocolate to their husbands to drink. The problem was that what they brought was mole, the spicy.
Right.
Right, so the spicy drink. And after a couple of days, the story was that the Spanish were going like, "Well, you're going to poke a hole in my stomach," So someone thought to mix it with milk and honey. Lo and behold, now we have the Spanish chocolate to drink.
Right. Which
And
is so delicious if you
it's
haven't
delicious.
had it.
So when it got to Europe, the amount of endorphins and joy, the dopamine release that it generated in the female brain structure was too dangerous for the ecclesiastical authorities. They decided that it was best for ladies not to have chocolate because it was too happy. But funny enough, men are not good with chocolate. Men should have coffee because the theobromine in chocolate irritates men, irritates in terms of irritation and irritability. Whereas coffee in men, it actually makes them more uh, calmer.
Okay.
It's vasodilator. Freshly brewed coffee is healthy. It dissolves plaque. It's vasodilator, makes you think better, resolve issues. So for men, coffee is better for men. Chocolate is better for women.
Then I can have my cocoa for breakfast on Valentine's Day.
Yes.
I got it from a doctor. It's okay now.
Well, I'm sure.
I'm
I'm
just
sure there will
joking.
be
I'm
many.
joking.
I'm sure there will many doctors that will love to disagree with me.
Well, he probably means cocoa powder with some healthy additives, not marshmallows on top and things like that. And yes, I think we have a lot of good questions answered about the heart. And I really appreciate you taking time to talk with us again and learn some things about the heart for Valentine's Day, maybe from a different perspective. It's not dating related or marriage related as much, but yet we did bring it up a little bit
But
in
always
our talk.
always remember that, like I started with. Do you know what this symbol of the heart? You know what it means?
I don't know. I always assumed it was kind of like two people together or something like that.
That's exactly what it means, because for people that are gifted and they can see the energy patterns around us, that's how it looks like when two people are in love. So
I didn't
that's
know that.
actually the auras of the people merging. And you see the two heads,
But yeah, that
and
kind of
then,
makes sense.
yeah, you see the two heads, but
Right.
everything underneath the two heads is conjoined.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
That's a fun fact.
because we're all connected. We're all connected. I mean, it's the same energy that holds our atoms together is love. So I mean, not to sound corny, but it's true. So in Saint Valentine's, just project some of that love.
I love that. Thank you. I'm going to have to go look that up. Every time I talk to you, I have a bunch of things I have to go look up afterwards, which is, I'm a nerd, so that makes my day. And I wanted to thank you so much for joining us. And I wish you all the best in your practice. And I hope you can use these videos to share too, just for fun with your patients, if it helps them out too, and for your practice. And I would like to thank you, Dr. Miguel, for joining us today. And I'm going to put his contact information below for you if you want to get in contact with him and have questions or you want to be a patient. And thank you again.
My pleasure. Always a pleasure to talk to you.
Thanks for joining me today on the Emily Rassam Show. If you laughed, learned something, or at least didn't roll your eyes too hard, go ahead and like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, keep the coffee strong, your kids alive, and the dreams big.